2 a.m. In the stillness of the night, at a luxurious garden estate along the Hudson River in New York, the shrill screech of a handsaw sliced through the serene air. Under the dim light of the bathroom lamp, Emily Carter, 29 years old, a renowned floral artist celebrated for her delicate arrangements and lofty, romantic spirit, was carrying out an unthinkable act. Her hands trembled but were filled with determination as she sawed through the remains of her husband, Michael Carter, right there on the cold marble floor. The coppery stench of blood began to mingle with the sweet scent of wisteria drifting in from the back garden, creating a heady, haunting perfume. A horrifying secret was about to be buried beneath the roots of an ancient oak tree where the loose soil would soon drink in her crime. She believed she had erased every trace, every bloodstain on the floor, every fragment of a shattered, deceitful marriage, creating the perfect façade. But the truth, no matter how cleverly hidden, never stays silent forever. How could a woman, with such an outwardly gentle and refined demeanor, kill the very man she had once vowed to love? The answer lay not only in betrayal, but in a labyrinth of schemes and family secrets darker than any nightmare. To understand the depths of the guilt and rage Emily had fallen into, one must first see the flawless façade her husband's family, the Carters, had built. In the affluent suburb of Greenwich, Connecticut, their mansion sat in the most coveted location, overlooking the shimmering Hudson. The estate spanned over 6,500 square feet, designed in a classic European style and surrounded by a meticulously trimmed garden. The pride of that garden was a towering, century-old oak tree, whose branches spread wide in all seasons, a symbol of the Carter family's prosperity. Richard Carter, 63, was the chairman of Carter & Sons Construction, a powerful figure in the East Coast real estate world. His wife, Margaret Carter, 61, was the picture of elegance, always impeccably dressed, always smiling warmly. They lived a life that seemed perfectly complete, having handed over much of the business to the next generation. Living under the same roof was their only son, Michael, 33. Michael seemed like a man straight out of a romance novel, CEO of Carter Marina, a luxury yacht leasing and sales company. With his handsome looks, business acumen inherited from his father, and vast connections among America's elite, he was the dream of many women. Michael was constantly busy, lavish networking events at five-star hotels, sudden business trips, and a web of complicated relationships in the corporate world. The final, perfect piece of this family picture was Emily, Michael's wife. Emily was not only beautiful, but a gifted floral artist. Her boutique, the Rose Garden Studio in Manhattan, was a favorite among New York's wealthy. People said flowers in her hands became works of art. Outwardly, their life was a dream. The media and social networks often praised them as the model American family, successful parents, a brilliant son, and a beautiful, talented daughter-in-law. Family dinners in the riverside mansion, vacations aboard their luxury yacht, their radiant smiles at charity galas, all painted an image of flawless happiness. No one, not even those closest to them, suspected the cracks forming beneath the glitter. The snakes of deceit and betrayal had already slithered into every corner, and a time bomb of hatred was quietly ticking. The wedding of Michael Carter and Emily had been held at the Waldorf Astoria, New York, one of the city's most extravagant events. It looked like a symphony of power and beauty, glasses of vintage champagne sparkling, the couple's perfect smiles immortalized in thousands of photographs. Everyone believed it was the happy ending to a fairy tale romance. But to see the truth behind that smile, we must rewind to over a year earlier, when the Carter empire stood at the edge of ruin. In 2022, amid the chaos of the pandemic and fierce competition in the real estate market, Carter & Sons Construction fell into a severe financial crisis. Several major projects stalled, cash flow nearly froze, and the reputation and very foundation Richard Carter had built over his lifetime teetered on the brink of collapse. Then, at the height of this turmoil, a golden opportunity appeared. The Elysian Shore Resort, one of the largest luxury beachfront projects in Florida, was seeking a primary contractor for its second phase. Winning that contract would not only save Carter & Sons but catapult the company to new heights. However, Their competition was formidable, and Richard began to formulate a ruthless, calculated plan. He knew that one of the largest and most influential shareholders on the resort's board was the chairman of Westbrook Resources, none other than Emily's father. A secret meeting between the two older men took place not to discuss the contract outright, but to propose a strategic alliance solidified by the marriage of their children. It was an offer that could not be refused. If the families became in-laws, the contract would inevitably go to Carter and Sons. When Richard presented the plan at a family meeting, Michael reacted with outrage. "Are you serious? This is the 21st century. I can't marry someone I don't love just for a business deal," he snapped. But Richard, with the cold pragmatism of a seasoned businessman, crushed his son's protests. "This isn't just a marriage, Michael. This is the future of Carter and Sons. This is our legacy. Love can come later. It can be built. But the chance to save an empire comes only once. You're smart enough to know which to choose." Under the crushing weight of his father's pressure, the burden of the family's fate, and his own ambition for power, Michael ultimately gave in. He agreed to the marriage, agreeing to turn both his and an innocent young woman's life into a chess piece in a high-stakes corporate game. For Emily, it was a completely different story. She had met Michael at a business gala, and at first sight, her heart raced at his polished charm, intelligence, and confident demeanor. When he began pursuing her with expensive bouquets and romantic dates, she truly believed she had found the love of her life. She had no idea that every sweet gesture, every tender word, was part of a pre-written script. She didn't know her love was just a clause in a contract. So Emily walked down the aisle full of trust and hope, unaware that her lavish wedding gown was nothing more than an ornament for a business deal, and that her husband's vows were worth no more than a signature that could save a crumbling empire. The first crack in the tragedy formed in that very moment of supposed happiness. Their honeymoon passed like a dream. Emily was immersed in the joy of being a newlywed, caring for their home and nurturing what she thought was love. She was willing to give up her thriving career, closing the Rose Garden studio to become the perfect wife and dutiful daughter-in-law. Every evening she cooked lavish dinners, waiting for Michael to come home. But happiness was short-lived. Just 10 days after the wedding, dark clouds began to gather. Michael started staying out more often, claiming urgent business trips that lasted days or even weeks. At first, Emily trusted him completely, telling herself he was working hard for their future. But soon, small, unsettling signs began to appear. His replies to her texts grew curt. Late-night calls went unanswered. Then, one evening, while doing his laundry, she caught the faint, unfamiliar scent of a woman's perfume on his shirt, not her own. Her instincts screamed that something was wrong. She began to notice the little things: a movie ticket stub for a night he claimed to be in meetings, a mysterious midnight text from an unknown number asking to meet at the top floor, 3 o'clock. And when he came home after these absences, his face showed fatigue, but his eyes glittered with a strange excitement. Suspicion began to gnaw at her soul. Emily decided not to confront him yet. Instead, she chose silence and began her own investigation. One morning, Emily told her family she was meeting an old friend. In reality, she rented a small motorbike, pulled on a helmet, and covered her face with a mask, transforming herself into an amateur detective. She quietly tailed Michael's sleek black Mercedes S-Class from his company office. Her heart clenched when the car didn't head toward any meeting venue, but instead stopped in front of the Grand Horizon Hotel, one of the most luxurious hotels in Manhattan. Then she froze. Michael stepped out, opened the door for another woman, a stunning, alluring young brunette in a striking red dress. They walked hand in hand, laughing, disappearing into the elevator. Emily's world collapsed in that instant. Sitting on her rented scooter, tears streamed down her face, but she did not break down. She steadied her shaking hands and took a picture. The image, blurred by tears, still clearly captured the betrayal. In the days that followed, Emily became someone else entirely. Outwardly still the gentle, devoted wife, she secretly tracked Michael's every move, collecting evidence of his deceit. Through her social connections, she quickly learned the woman's identity. Samantha Hayes, 26, a sharp, beautiful event manager for a partner company Michael often worked with. Samantha wasn't just beautiful, she had an extensive network among New York's elite. Emily's pain doubled when she discovered their affair wasn't just a string of hotel rendezvous. She found receipts from a luxury cafe at the Ritz-Carlton, where they had midday dates. Records of a high-end apartment in Tribeca Michael had rented solely for their secret meetings, and even a weekend getaway to the Hamptons he had lied about, claiming it was a business trip. For 3 months, from June to August, Emily lived in hell. She continued gathering proof, flirtatious encrypted messages between Michael and Samantha, credit card bills for expensive gifts, and even a diamond necklace hidden in Michael's car, clearly meant for Samantha but not yet given. She had become a stranger in her own marriage, a reluctant spectator in a play where she was the only one who didn't know the script. Her love had turned to ice, and deep inside, a fire for revenge began to burn. The breaking point came one night in August. Emily followed Michael again to the Grand Horizon Hotel. This time, she didn't just watch from afar, she followed them to the 11th floor, standing quietly in the hallway outside room 1107. She could hear laughter and tender words spilling from inside. Then came the sentence that killed any lingering hope. Samantha's silky voice, "You promised you'd divorce her, Michael. I don't want to be the woman in the shadows forever." Emily didn't burst in, didn't scream. She turned away and went back to the mansion on the Hudson, a place that once felt like home, now nothing more than a gilded prison. Her heart was dead. In utter despair, Emily turned to what she thought would be her last hope, her in-laws. She believed that as parents, they would never condone something so wrong. She hoped for comfort, for justice. One morning, she brought all her collected evidence photos, blurred videos, hotel receipts to Richard and Margaret Carter. Her voice shook as she recounted everything, tears brimming. Their reaction left her more stunned and hurt than Michael's betrayal itself. Margaret didn't even glance at the evidence. She slammed the table and snapped, "Stop making things up. My son is a good man. He works hard. And you, sitting around with nothing to do, get these silly ideas. Men in big business meet with all kinds of people. It's normal. Don't make a scene." Richard, though calmer, sided with his wife. He looked at Emily not with sympathy, but with warning. "Emily, don't blow this out of proportion. Michael's my son. I know him. Be sensible. Don't cause trouble for this family. Whatever's going on between you two, handle it privately." Emily tried to explain further, showing them the flirtatious texts, but Margaret only grew harsher. "You're lucky to have married Michael. Women would kill for that. And you can't even keep your husband? Don't make me think you're not worthy of him." Those words cut deeper than any blade. Emily realized the truth. She was completely alone in this house. Not only did they tolerate Michael's betrayal, they blamed her for it. Her pain and hatred solidified into a cold, smoldering ember, waiting for a gust of wind to ignite it into an inferno. In the days that followed, Emily lived like a shadow. She still appeared gentle and attentive, but her eyes had grown hollow and cold. She began behaving strangely, spending hours in Michael's home office whenever he was away, rummaging through his things. She was no longer searching for proof of the affair. She was searching for something else, a reason, an explanation for her in-laws' blind and unreasonable defense of him. Then, one day while cleaning Richard's old safe in his study, she stumbled upon a hidden compartment. Inside weren't money or important documents, but a few faded photo albums. Curious, she opened them. They were photos of Richard in his younger days, and then her heart stopped. In one photo, taken nearly 30 years ago at a seaside resort in California, Richard had his arm around a young, beautiful woman, definitely not Margaret. The woman was laughing brightly. When Emily looked closer, a chilling realization struck her. The woman bore an uncanny resemblance to someone she had seen before, Samantha's mother. Emily hurriedly took a photo of the image on her phone and compared it to a recent picture of Samantha's mother she had found on social media. There was no doubt they were the same person. The final, most horrifying piece fell into place. Richard had not only cheated in the past, his mistress was Samantha's mother. That explained everything. Richard wasn't defending Michael out of love alone, he was protecting himself. If Michael and Samantha's affair were exposed, his own decades-old secret would come to light. This family's foundation was built on generations of deceit and betrayal. Both her husband and father-in-law, two of the most powerful men in the household, were cheaters, entangled in a twisted connection with the same mother-daughter pair. But another question began to burn in Emily's mind. Was her marriage truly just a business deal, or was there another hidden agenda? With cold determination, Emily returned to Michael's office, no longer seeking proof of infidelity, but the truth about her marriage itself. She searched locked drawers, broke into encrypted files on his computer she had never touched before, and then she found it. In a hidden folder labeled Elision Project, she discovered an old email from Richard to her father, sent at the exact time Carter and Sons was in crisis. The email read, "Dear John, I know Westbrook Resources is considering partners for the second phase of the Elysian Shore Resort. On our end, Carter and Sons would very much like the opportunity to strengthen our long-term cooperation and secure mutual benefits. I'd like to propose a path forward. Our children, Michael and Emily, are both of age to marry. If we could bring them together, it would be more than a business alliance. It would be a lasting bond between our families." The world shattered around Emily. It was true. The love she had believed in, the marriage she cherished, was nothing more than part of a corporate strategy. She was just a bargaining chip, a pawn to save a failing company. Rage burned in her throat as she recalled Margaret's cruel words. "You're lucky to have married Michael. Women would kill for that." Luck? No, humiliation. Every piece now fit perfectly. Her husband's betrayal, her in-laws' indifference, and now the truth about a marriage arranged for business gain. Her love had turned completely to ash. No more tears, no more pleas. Only one thought remained: revenge. She would not divorce him. Divorce would be too easy for them. She wouldn't cause a public scandal that would only make her look pathetic. No, she would make them pay, quietly and mercilessly. From a betrayed wife, Emily transformed into a predator. She began crafting a meticulous plan, cold, calculated, terrifying. She stopped crying, stopped tracking Michael. She became an even more devoted wife, cooking his favorite meals, caring for him tenderly. But in the dead of night, when everyone slept, she sat before her computer, researching sedatives, lethal dosages, forensic countermeasures, and the methods behind perfect murders. She was building the skill set of a killer. Her plan was nearly ready, and the perfect opportunity soon presented itself. One morning, Richard and Margaret announced they had to attend a family memorial in Boston for a few days, leaving the vast mansion to Emily and Michael. That night, Emily prepared an elaborate make-up dinner after weeks of tension steak with green peppercorn sauce, creamy mushroom soup, and a fine bottle of vintage wine. The atmosphere was warm and romantic, just like the early days of their marriage. Michael, relieved and delighted by her sudden tenderness, had no idea it would be his last meal. With the precision of a professional chef, Emily stirred a massive dose of odorless, tasteless sedative into his green peppercorn sauce, purchased discreetly online after days of research. Michael ate heartily, even taking her hand and saying, eyes glistening, "I'm sorry, Emily. I promise I won't hurt you again. Give me one last chance." Minutes later, he collapsed on the sofa, his breathing slowing, then stopping. Emily calmly checked his pulse. He was gone. At first, a wave of panic surged through her. Her heart pounded, sweat poured down her back. She sank to the floor, cradling Michael's body, sobbing, "Why did you do this to me? Why did your whole family lie to me?" But the grief and hatred quickly overpowered the fear. She told herself that if she couldn't keep him alive, she would keep him forever in her own way. From 9 p.m. until dawn, in the cold marble-tiled bathroom, a horrific task unfolded. Emily dragged Michael's body into the bathtub. With a razor-sharp chef's knife she used daily in the kitchen, and a small handsaw from Richard's tool collection, she began dismembering him. She worked mechanically, coldly, precisely, like a chef breaking down a large cut of meat in a restaurant kitchen. Blood spilled across the tiles. She calmly collected it in buckets and flushed it down the toilet, running the water repeatedly. She scrubbed the floor with industrial strength cleaner until not a trace remained. She sawed the bones into small pieces, separated the flesh into portions, wrapped them tightly in layers of plastic wrap. and stored them in the large industrial freezer in the kitchen, normally used for catering big family events. She carefully labeled each package beef and stacked them neatly alongside other meats. As for Michael's head, she placed it into a black trash bag. In the early dawn light, she carried it to the back garden. Beneath the sprawling oak tree, where the soil was soft and seldom disturbed, she dug a deep hole. She buried the head, covered it thoroughly, then placed a large potted plant on top to disguise the spot. She even sprinkled organic fertilizer around the area to create the smell of freshly turned soil, deterring curiosity. Every move was calculated, no loose ends. Emily Carter, the floral artist, had become a butcher without hesitation. She didn't allow herself a moment of fear or regret. By morning, she was ready to play her role again. Using Michael's phone, she texted several close associates and his personal assistant. "I've got an urgent trip to Singapore for a confidential project. I'll be away for a few weeks. Don't call, I'll reach out when I can." She even sent a similar email from his account to Richard, adding that Michael was dealing with some personal financial trouble and needed time to resolve it. She built the perfect narrative Michael had left because of work, stress, and debts. On the outside, she became the concerned wife again, arranging flowers, cooking meals, checking on her in-laws' health. Her calmness was so convincing that no one suspected a thing. Then, she decided it was time for the cruelest part of her plan. A few days after Richard and Margaret returned from Boston, Emily cheerfully announced she would host a small family dinner to wish Michael well on his business trip. She even invited Samantha, saying that as Michael's important business partner, it was best to maintain good relations. Though uneasy, Richard and Margaret agreed. Samantha, upon receiving the invitation directly from Emily, assumed it was a chance to assert her place and accepted eagerly. The dinner was tense beneath a polite veneer. Emily, playing the gracious hostess, personally prepared her special dish, beef stew with green peppercorn. "This is a new recipe I've learned. The beef is slow cooked until it melts in your mouth," she said with a warm smile. The rich aroma filled the dining room. Richard, Margaret, and Samantha all praised the flavor. None of them knew the tender beef they were eating came from Michael's own flesh. Emily sat there, calmly watching them eat, her eyes steady and unblinking. In her mind, this was the sweetest revenge, forcing those who had betrayed and protected betrayal to consume the man they claimed to love. When the meal was nearly over, Samantha, her face a little flushed but triumphant, suddenly raised her wine glass. "Since we're all here tonight, I have some happy news to share." All eyes turned to her. She placed a hand on her belly. "I'm pregnant with Michael's baby. We were going to tell you after he and Emily resolved things." The room froze. Richard and Margaret exchanged shocked, conflicted glances, angry, embarrassed, but with a flicker of complex emotion at the thought of a grandchild. But no one was more stunned than Emily. The words were like a blade sharper than any knife, plunging straight into her frozen heart. He hadn't just betrayed her, he'd fathered a child with another woman. Her smile stiffened. The hand holding her wine glass turned pale from the pressure, but within seconds, she regained her terrifying composure and even forced a chilling smile. "Congratulations," she said. Inside, her hatred didn't diminish, it roared higher. Her revenge was far from over. Samantha and her unborn child had just moved to the top of Emily's list. In the days following that macabre dinner, Michael Carter remained missing. Emily continued her act as the anxious, loving wife, occasionally asking her in-laws if they had heard from him. Her performance was flawless, so much so that even Richard and Margaret, despite faint doubts after the dinner, couldn't find a single crack in her story. But Richard, a seasoned businessman, couldn't ignore the gnawing unease. Nearly a month passed, no calls, no emails, no contact. Important business partners began complaining about stalled projects. His paternal instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. On the 25th of the month, unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, Richard officially reported Michael's mysterious disappearance to the police. The NYPD's homicide unit assigned the case to Captain Leonard Quinn, a veteran investigator with over 20 years of experience. From the start, the detectives faced an almost impossible situation. There was no clear starting point. They began at the Carter mansion, interviewing Emily. She recited the story she had crafted with calm, logical precision, her eyes glistening with feigned worry. She showed them the fake texts and emails she'd sent from Michael's accounts, painting a picture of a man who had simply left under the pressure of work and debts. The police searched the home thoroughly. The bathroom gleamed, the floors spotless. All potential tools, knives, saws, were scrubbed with diluted acid, leaving no detectable blood traces. The industrial freezer was filled with neatly wrapped packages labeled beef, indistinguishable from premium store-bought meat. The mansion's security cameras had been switched off the night Michael disappeared. Emily explained that there had been a sudden neighborhood power outage which caused a system error. Detectives found no signs of damage, but suspected deliberate tampering. High walls and thick landscaping meant neighbors had seen nothing. The investigation hit a dead end almost immediately. Still, Captain Quinn felt something was off. Everything was too clean, too perfect. And then, the first real lead came from the most unexpected source. As part of their inquiry, child psychologists were brought in to speak with all household members, including Emily and Michael's 5-year-old son, Ben. The goal was to see if the child had seen or heard anything unusual. In a playroom filled with toys, Ben chatted happily about ordinary things until the psychologist gently asked about the back garden and the big oak tree he loved. "Oh yeah, it's really pretty," Ben said brightly. "A few nights ago, Mommy planted a secret tree there." "A secret tree? Why was it secret?" the psychologist asked. "Because she did it at night. That night, Daddy was on a work trip. I got up for some water and saw Mommy outside, digging a really big hole under the oak tree. She said it was a surprise for Daddy for when he came back, and she told me not to tell anyone." The innocent words of a 5-year-old struck like lightning. Within hours, Captain Quinn had authorized a full excavation of the area under the oak tree. A forensics team was dispatched. After moving the large potted plant and digging through nearly 6 feet of loose soil, they found it a black plastic bag. Inside was the severed head of Michael Carter, his eyes wide open as if staring at those who had uncovered the grim secret. Beside it was a small metal box containing a handwritten letter from Emily, the delicate script masking venomous rage. "You betrayed me, and this is the price you pay. But I still love you. Michael, the others will soon join you." It was irrefutable evidence. The perfect façade of the dutiful wife collapsed, and the monster hiding behind the floral artist's mask was dragged into the light. That afternoon, an emergency arrest warrant was issued. When the police convoy arrived at the mansion, Emily was in the garden, calmly watering her flowers. Seeing Captain Quinn and the officers, she didn't flinch or act surprised. She simply set the watering can down, her eyes cold and steady. "You found it faster than I thought," she said, a faint smirk crossing her lips. She offered no resistance as the handcuffs closed around her wrists. The silence and composure with which she surrendered sent chills through everyone present. At the interrogation room, Emily didn't evade a single question. She confessed to everything from discovering Michael's affair, enduring the betrayal of her in-laws, to planning and executing the meticulously calculated murder. "I gave him a final meal," she said evenly, "just as he gave me a final marriage built on lies." She described the dismemberment and disposal process with the calm detail of someone explaining a recipe. She admitted inviting her in-laws and Michael's mistress to that grotesque dinner intentionally. "I wanted them to taste the truth," she said, eyes flashing with hatred. "They lied to me, protected him, and she stole my husband. They all deserved it." When investigators questioned the notes in her diary detailing future targets, she didn't hide it. "Yes, I plan to deal with her and the baby next, then Richard and Margaret for using me like a pawn, and finally Jonathan Price, the man behind my husband's dirty business deals. I found them all." The most chilling part, Emily never shed a tear, never showed a flicker of remorse. She truly believed what she did was justified and necessary vengeance for the pain she had endured. "I just wanted to keep him with me forever, even if it had to be like this," she said, her gaze distant. "The rest will pay, too, sooner or later." Her confession was not just the admission of a killer, it was the pronouncement of a heart turned entirely to stone by hatred. The investigation into Michael Carter's disappearance was officially closed, but it opened the door to a darker truth, exposing a web of money laundering and rotten family ties that shook New York's high society. Emily Carter's trial became a national sensation, attracting widespread media attention. Standing before the judge, the once celebrated floral artist remained cold and dry-eyed, showing no remorse as she recounted her crime from the pain of betrayal to the methodical execution of her revenge. Given the brutality, premeditation, and utter lack of remorse, the court sentenced her to the maximum penalty, death. But the story didn't end there. The expanded investigation revealed the final, most sickening truth. Michael Carter had been having an affair with his own half-sister, Samantha Hayes. The entire tragedy had been built on a foundation of lies, corruption, and illicit relationships spanning generations. The death sentence was the law's punishment for Emily, but the punishment of conscience and the stain of the Carter family's shameful secrets would haunt those left behind forever. A once prestigious family had destroyed itself from within, consumed by deceit and unchecked desire. So, in this tangled web of tragedy, who was truly the most to blame? The wife who killed in cold blood? The husband who cheated with his own sister? Or the father whose decaying secrets lit the match for it all?